FFA members just like these in 214 chapters across Nebraska, celebrating FFA Week.
I had a student tell me today that she struggles in her core classes, but ag class is where she gets to be herself and to learn, and she finds success. And
straight ahead, we celebrate FFA Week as we visit with the next generation. Plus, at the epicenter of the beef state, we head to the Classic. On the policy front, news on dicamba and E15, it's time to grow. More on FFA Week in a bit, but first, beef is big business in the beef state, and the biggest sale of all, the Classic in Kearney, and it comes with cattle inventory at a 7-decade low. Gary Robinson Jr. has our story.
Today
we're selling over 300 head, and we'll be busy all day long.
41, 4,000 now one.
Business is mooing at NCC the Classic, but across Nebraska and the country, cattle inventory has dropped by 2%, the smallest herd in 75 years. According to the show general manager, this cattle sale could not have come at a better time.
For cattlemen to be able to select their genetics, as well as we've got an array of industry booths here today that kind of help them with the tools that can help for the sustainability of our industry.
I spoke with local cattle producer Steve Snell, who has bred cattle winning national shows, about the factors he believes leads to the drop.
I think just over the years, the drought really affected the cattle industry this last summer. And so a lot of producers, went ahead and bred the cows, got rid of their bulls, and so now they're out looking for better genetics.
Agriculture is Nebraska's biggest industry, and cattle production is the biggest segment. For those selling cattle, there's money to be made, but those trying to rebuild the herd face challenges.
Right now, the market prices have been well, but everyone needs to remember the input costs and the cost of doing business is actually a lot higher, too.
And now a perspective from Iowa. We turn to our sister station there for a look at how cattle producers are faring.
The family behind Plowman Farms has been producing cattle in Van Buren County since the 1800s. Stretches of drought and harsh winter weather are not new challenges for farmers, but the way those elements have compounded in the last year certainly has been.
I'm 37 years old and I've never seen a snowfall like this, so it's a very new experience for me. The past generations have dealt with this, but I haven't. So yeah, clearing the snow, getting to the cattle was extremely hard this winter.
Cale says coming off one of the hardest droughts he's seen in his lifetime, hay production was way down, making it difficult to keep up with the cattle's nutritional needs, especially as their consumption goes up trying to keep warm in the winter.
Yeah, if you figure out what hay is bringing, it's kind of scary how much you have in it if you needed to go buy some. There's a lot of producers that sold cattle because they did not have the hay production this year, and going into winter they didn't have it, so it was cheaper for them to sell their livestock and get out of farming.
The Plowman Farm has been able to maintain its cattle's well-being, but it has cut deeply into profit margins by feeding the cows through a long winter. Collectively, this year is the lowest cow herd the U.S. has seen in over 70 years. Drought nationwide is a major contributing factor. The massive snowstorms from January may not be enough to get the Hawkeye State out of drought, but farmers are hopeful it could at least bring greener pastures this spring.
With the heavy snowfall that we had, the ground was not frozen underneath of it, and so it melted and it went into the ground. So we're hoping spring, the ground moisture is going to have some more for quick growth in the spring for pastures and good tillage and growth for the crops planted in the spring.
Maddie Lee, KTVO News.
Soybean growers approach the growing season possibly without an important tool in the toolbox. Dicamba has become a key herbicide for use with soybeans, but a federal court in Arizona vacated registration of some dicamba products. The The court decision raises concerns for growers of soybeans, which is, of course, the second largest crop in Nebraska. Nebraska Extension agronomists say it's a tool out of the toolbox, putting growers in a bind. Many farmers, of course, use soybeans that can be sprayed with glyphosate or dicamba. So-called over-the-top use of dicamba helps control Palmer amaranth, which, as we know, is a particularly pesky weed. The EPA says dicamba, already out on the farm and in retail settings, can be applied, but the court ruling late in the game does raise concerns. Now U.S. Senators Pete Ricketts and Deb Fischer call on the EPA to appeal the court ruling and also seek a stay pending the appeal. It also asks them to modify its current existing stocks order so farmers, retailers, and manufacturers will not be impacted this spring. And now the return of the question of the week. We want to know, how concerned are you about the availability of dicamba this growing season? Follow NTV's Grow on Twitter, also known as X, to cast your votes. The EPA ruling in favor of a request from Midwest governors when it comes to the sale of E15, but not all the time across the country. The ruling puts E15 on equal footing with E10 when it comes to regulations beginning in 2025, and only in the 8 Midwestern states that pushed for the change, including Nebraska. The Nebraska Ethanol Board says they're happy for the news, but will continue to push for nationwide year-round sales of E15. Senator Pete Ricketts reacting, quote, "Today's announcement is a welcome step toward year-round availability of E15. Higher blend ethanol saves consumers money at the pump. It makes us more energy independent, and it creates good-paying jobs right here in Nebraska. The next step is for Congress to pass legislation allowing for the permanent sale of E15 nationwide." End quote. Senator Deb Fischer not satisfied with the ruling, saying, quote, "While I appreciate that the EPA has finally approved the year-round availability of E15, the limited geography and needless delay until 2025 still complicates its sale. Congress must pass my legislation that will at last provide a nationwide permanent solution for the sale of this blend that benefits consumers, producers, and the environment." End quote. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Equity Commission is recommending dozens of changes to resolve longstanding discriminatory practices at the agency. Some of the actions include creating a pathway to citizenship for essential agriculture workers and ensuring fair labor practices and protections for food system farm workers. The report also recommends diversifying county committees and broadening the definition of a farmer or rancher in the Census of Agriculture. The commission began examining the USDA's policies and programs 2 years ago. The agency already implemented 32 recommendations from an interim report issued last year. With memories of the bomb cyclone still fresh in many of our minds, some communities in the path of flooding could see some future relief. Instead of sandbagging, what if water avoided homes and businesses? That's the goal for those in a stretch of central Nebraska that have seen more than their share of floods.
We're just looking at potential alternatives to reduce that flood risk.
Specifically between Kearney and Grand Island, the towns of Gibbon, Shelton, Wood River, and Alda are flood prone.
It's kind of a unique watershed, too, with the way the highway and the railroad kind of bisect the watershed and keep flows from kind of going south and southeast how they naturally want to.
The Central Platte Natural Resources District has several existing flood control projects, including 2 that pay for themselves, preventing tens of millions of damages in the city of Grand Island. Both of those took very different forms, and they've considered several alternatives, like dams and levees here.
We're leaning more towards diversion channels. We've looked at levees, we've looked at dams, we've looked at detention cells, a lot of what you see around Grand Island. I think probably what we're looking for, or the direction we're heading with this study, is a diversion channel of some sort.
A project designed to mitigate the impact of a 100-year flood could have an astronomical price tag, $200 million. Instead, they're looking at roughly $40 million from both state and local sources for an estimate totaling $81 million. Construction could still be years away.
We're the engineers, so we're doing all the hydraulic modeling, the economic analysis, the environmental impact analysis, just generally coming up with the design.
Then if the NRD decides to build, it would likely need to use eminent domain to acquire farm ground. A project would likely protect homes, businesses, and crops by diverting water northwest of Gibbon.
Where if we do something upstream, it does tend to have a pretty big benefit downstream as well.
Celebrating FFA week, stay with us as we hear from kids throughout the show.
Hi, I'm Bethany Pricer.
And I'm Kate Miracle.
We're from the Boone Central FFA chapter in Albion.
And my favorite thing about FFA is working with livestock.
My favorite part is meeting new people and competing in new contests.
I'm Morgan Boniface. I'm from the Aurora FFA chapter, and my favorite part of FFA is my SAE projects.
Which is?
I grow pumpkins, and my business called Country Kids Pumpkins, and then I also have a mom business called Morgan's Moms and More.
Nebraska's First Lady bringing bushels of stories. Planting season will soon be here, and First Lady Suzanne Pillen is sowing seeds with fourth graders. The message she hopes takes root is all about agriculture and Nebraska's place as a leader in crops and livestock.
Corn.
Oh.
Wheat. And
eggs.
Soy.
What about cows and pigs? Do we have a lot of those? As she was searching for her role as First Lady, Mrs. Pillen said she hit on the idea of bringing together her background as a teacher with her family's roots in farming to promote both literacy and agriculture.
I really do. I think that kids, they know a lot more than I think they do, but there's more they can learn. But I just want them to know the importance of agriculture and how it makes Nebraska tick, and just how we depend upon agriculture. And like I said, maybe there's somebody in this room that's going to be a farmer someday.
Pillen worked with the Nebraska Farm Bureau Foundation, which has an existing agriculture in the classroom program. She said during her husband's term in office, she plans to read across the state to help kids understand where their food comes from. Saddle up as Big Time Rodeo returns to Grand Island. Fauner Park played host Friday and Saturday, but a select few were able to catch the action early. Thursday brought the overflow or slack contestants, earning points in hope for a trip to the National Finals Rodeo in Vegas.
And this is a professional level of rodeo, so professional sport, and we run it a really tight rodeo, and we want to have the best entertainment value for the fans that come here. So yes, it's very, very organized, but also live events with animals, and you never know what's going to happen. That makes it exciting too.
And as Amy said, this is pro rodeo, and while you're on the edge of your seat to see if cowboys can last 8 seconds on a bull, it takes a team of people behind the scenes for an event that's both modern and rooted in agricultural heritage.
To do that, it's such a mixture of the high entertainment value and what's current today, but also bringing in the Old West tradition and the rodeo history. And we're a 6th-generation rodeo company, and so I mean we've literally been here since the sport started, and we're really proud of that lineage and the heritage, and we definitely want that to come through in every performance too.
The modern touches include pyro, laser lights, and a DJ to keep the tunes going. Plus, they use precision technology to time the speed events. Rodeo Grand Island wrapping up with 3 performances at the Heartland Event Center. Our Grow Weather Outlook is next, and we continue our celebration of all things FFA.
Hi, I'm Allie Howell. I'm from the High Plains FFA chapter, and my favorite part of being FFA is the community and then working on my SAE, spending time on the farm, and working with my livestock.
Well, the drought monitor that was released this past week, and some of you at home may be wondering, well, this looks about the exact same as compared to last week. That's because it actually is. All of Kansas and all of Nebraska, nothing really changed in the drought monitor. None of the categories have changed really at all. Still 49 and 30% in Kansas in the no drought category. That is abnormally dry, about 50 and 2/3% there. 28.25% still at moderate drought, and severe drought just 2.32%. And still nice to see no extreme or exceptional drought across the entire state of Kansas, or really Nebraska. None of that either. But we still have 65 and 2/3% of the state in no drought. Very nice to see that. Still abnormally dry, still about 34 and 1/3%. Moderate drought still at about 24.5%, and severe drought still stands at about 12% across parts of east central and southeast Nebraska. So we still could use a little bit of rain out there. Otherwise, temperatures for the month of March still about the same as last week. Again, expecting average temperatures for all of Nebraska as well as all of Kansas. Warmer temperatures expected north, and cooler temperatures for the month of March actually expected across southern parts of the U.S. Precipitation-wise for March, expecting actually above average precipitation totals for much of Nebraska, much of Kansas as well. Only maybe average totals there for parts of extreme southeast Nebraska, parts of southern and eastern Kansas as well. Looking at the next 3-month temperature outlook, again, this remains unchanged from last week too. Average totals for temperatures for all of Nebraska and all of Kansas. Above average temperatures expected for the northern part of the contiguous U.S. In the next 3 months, precipitation-wise, expecting slightly above average precipitation for central and eastern Kansas, as well as parts of central and eastern Nebraska. Maybe average totals otherwise for the rest of Kansas and the rest of Nebraska. Weather Bureau Almanac for the week ahead. Normally we see a high right around 45 this time of year, and normally we see a low right around 23 around this time. The week ahead, average a high of 58. Looks warm, but we'll just wait till you see the temperatures roller coaster we go on this next week. An average low of about 31. And of course, let's take a trip to Six Flags right now and ride this temperature roller coaster, starting off the week very warm, 75 for our Monday, then cooling off quite significantly on Tuesday. Again, cold front moving through that day. Temperatures may be very dependent on the timing of that front, that is. Again, very cold Wednesday morning, and then right back up to 43 by Wednesday afternoon. A chance of snow overnight. Good news is we're not expecting the totals to be all that much, but still could be a little bit of light snowfall late Tuesday, early Wednesday. How about the end of the week, though? Back up in the upper 50s and 60s by Thursday and Friday, with more sunshine on the way, too. Your Grow proverb, of course, you have to add a day to the calendar this week. February 29th rolls around. Of course, that means it's a leap year. And your Grow proverb, in a leap year, the weather always changes on Friday. Now, that sounds like a genius statement until you realize that the weather actually does change every day. Well, that is a check of the forecast. Again, in your Grow Weather Report. Stay tuned next week when once again it will be time to grow.
Deere and Case replace Chevy and Ford as kids drive their tractors to school, as we check out our photos of the week. Much more than cows, plows, and sows, we celebrate agriculture education when Grow returns.
My name is Sam Wells from the St. Paul FFA chapter. My name is Matthew Kramer from the St. Paul FFA chapter. And my favorite thing about FFA is the agronomy CDE. I have to say state range.
Ag Outlook on NTV's Grow is driven by Cornhusker Toyota Honda, home of the Toyota Tacoma and Tundra trucks, and Nebraska's only dual Toyota Honda dealer.
We're visiting with Alex Meyer, ag teacher in St. Ed, Career and Technical Education Month, FFA Week, and now you've got CDEs going on. Tell people what's happening here.
Yeah, so CDEs is our career development event competition where students get to come and compete and take tests on knowledge that they've learned in the classroom, things they're interested in the future, like welding, floriculture, and meats evaluation, things like that.
This is Career and Technical Education Month. It's also FFA Week. Talk about are there a lot of kids who are just excited and can't wait to get into those classes?
Career and technical education is amazing. It really helps prepare our students for a life after high school. And you know, FFA and ag education is just a small piece of that. There's other CTE organizations, of course, and help prepare them for life after high school with the things that we teach. And so kids are really excited to get in the classroom and learn those skills, which goes beyond just agriculture, of course, but in ag classes in particular, we teach them, you know, about where their food comes from and all of those things. So kids are passionate about it. That's why we're here today, and it's really great.
Farmer and rancher, those are two of the career opportunities, but that ag experience can take you about anywhere, can't it?
Yes, so I actually teach my freshmen that there are over 300 careers in agriculture. So really, if you think about it, almost any career could be connected to agriculture.
Especially in this state.
Yes, and so making sure that they know and understand that is really important.
Maybe when they're in math or social studies or whatever, they're just like, oh, when am I ever going to use this? But like when they get into an ag class, is that their time where like, this is my time to shine, I get it?
Yeah, I actually had a student tell me today that she struggles in her core classes, but ag classes where she gets to be herself and to learn and she finds success. And that's something really unique about CTE too, is that we are able to give students that success and give them things they will use, and applications to use the things that they learn in core classes too. But we are unique in that way that we get kids to have that success.
Well, we've had a great time celebrating FFA week, and we'll see you back here again as we see how agriculture makes Nebraska grow. Goodbye, everybody.
NTV's Grow is brought to you by Aurora Cooperative. Tougher together, Aurora and you.